Now let's bring in Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol. Mr. Gosling, welcome to the program. It's good to have you with us. My first question, how do you assess the UK's long-standing history of intervention in Iranian affairs, events like the 1953 coup, for example, in shaping today's narrative that ironically casts Iran as the threat for UK's national security?
Well, they're becoming a bit unhinged, aren't they? This is the powerful basically isolating themselves because they don't talk to the people. They're not interested in what the people have to say. Take as an example of that, we've had 5 massive protests now by British farmers saying, why are you trying to sell off our family farms to American corporations? Thousands and thousands of farmers protesting. So they're not even listening to the people that feed the country, let alone anybody else. The British seem to have a psychological warfare, not least against places like Russia and Iran, but also against their own people. And so we've got an unhinged king. Things have actually got worse, I think, since the death of Queen Elizabeth. And he's the kind of guy that likes to think he's still very much in charge. I don't know if you saw him sort of stroking President Zelensky, saying, oh, you poor Zelensky, my poor Zelensky, wasn't it a shame when Mr. Trump was so nasty to you? Now, a head of state should not be getting involved in these sorts of things. He's also accused Putin of being Hitler. So you can see we have a bit of a problem with our monarchy, something maybe a bit like in Saudi Arabia. These countries shouldn't be monarchies. There should be proper elections for these people. And those in power, if they start to do things wrong, and there's no way of replacing them like a king, then, as of course there is in places like Russia, proper elections for the president, and of course in Iran, things start to go awry. And so they use these sorts of tactics. So accuse your opponent of what you are doing to create confusion and inoculate yourself from guilt in the eyes of the voters or the people. That's a quote from Saul Alinsky in his Rules for Radicals, American, in 1972. So this is the sort of rather cheap tactic that our government is using against its own people.
Right. Mr. Gosling, do you think the UK is engaging in fear-mongering to justify measures like the snapback mechanism?
Well, look at what they did to Julian Assange. This is the sort of thing that we're seeing. I mean, it was only pressure from the ally Australia really put on very strongly that got Assange released. Otherwise, he'd still be in a high security prison. It's more convenient to think about people like Assange as, say, a terrorist. Oh, he's a terrorist, let's lock him away. In fact, they did the same with our beautiful Princess Diana. She was accused by now King Charles of being mad, an insane person, where actually it was him that was cheating on her and driving her crazy. So, you know, we are basically in this accusation against Iran, announced today that they may be actually forcing people, anyone who has any relations, like me, for example, right now with Iran, forcing us onto some special list, a register. I'm not going to go on that register. I'll say that right here and now. I'm not interested in some pathetic excuse for trying to target a country. And actually what Iran has done is very little in any kind of aggressive manner compared to what our so-called ally Israel has been doing, and that we have actually been supplying weapons for them to do a genocide. Iran has been doing that. So this is a way, I think, of deflecting away from the attitude any sane and civilized government should do in condemning Israel. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to, do they want people like me, anyone else who associates with Iran in internment camps? That would be convenient, wouldn't it? Because we're voices here in Britain who will speak out against Israel, and the idea, of course, I think, is to use a kind of Orwellian tactic. So isn't it interesting? George Orwell comes from Britain. I think he knew quite a lot about what was going on at Eton, the top schools in the country, and also in the establishment, when he was saying things like freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. And that's actually, it seems to me, the mindset of a very unhinged King Charles and the various people he appoints to all these positions of power in Britain.
Thank you so much for your insight. That was Tony Gosling, historian and investigative journalist, joining us from Bristol.